Hey gang, it's Will from Tested.
And it's Norm from Tested.
Norm and Chan, there are 3 tablets laid out in front of you. I know what that means.
It's tablet time.
Tablet time.
Woohoo! Which one? Which one?
Are you gonna 3-card Monty them? I want the one with the penny underneath.
What's underneath this one?
It's just nothing.
Well, no, this is the tablet we're talking about today. It's a Dell Venue 87000. Let's never call it that again.
It's the 87 space 1000? That is a really dumb name.
Yeah.
The tablet doesn't look that dumb though.
No, it's let's call it Dell's new tablet.
Okay.
It's Dell's Android tablet, and it's it's designed to be aligned with their new design aesthetic. There's an XPS 13 laptop they announced at CES. This also announced late last year that really emphasize like their bezel.
Complete lack thereof.
Almost. It's a very narrow bezel. And it's a kind of a statement. I think they want to make a design statement. They want to say Dell's back. We're making PCs that I think look good now.
You think that, or they think that?
I think they're saying it, and I haven't seen the XPS 13 yet.
Okay.
But from the pictures I've seen, it actually does look kind of good.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is an Android tablet, obviously.
Okay.
And it has an incredible screen. It's a 2560 by 1600 OLED screen.
It has a very high resolution
Very
screen.
high resolution OLED panel. Where I typically, I'm not the biggest fan of OLED. I've said this before with phones and tablets. I think this is one of the just in sheer pure pixel density, it's a gorgeous screen to look at.
2560 by 1600. I have a 30-inch panel on my desk that has the same number of pixels that is 5 times the size of that, maybe more so. And
this is in like an 8-inch form factor.
Yeah. Do you find that pixel density to be like is it too much?
Depends what you're running.
Okay.
So if in an application, and I think Android scaling has been a point of concern for a lot of people, different form factors, different resolutions. I really felt like that 1920 by 1080 or 1200 for an Android tablet, a 7-inch, 8-inch size tablet, was a really good sweet spot.
Can you see the pixels?
On here?
Yeah.
I have really good eyes.
Okay.
I'm nearsighted in one eye, so I can absolutely.
So you can close the other eye and see up
I
close.
can see the pixels.
Do the magnifying vision.
But it is incredible pixel density. I don't think it's as high as like the Note 4, for example, or the LG, those 2560 by 1440, 5.5-inch screens. But for a tablet, it's very high.
What about, so OLED has had color reproduction problems in the past. Sometimes they're oversaturated, sometimes they have bad off-axis viewing. How is this?
This is definitely a little higher saturated than I'm used to, than compared to an LCD screen.
Like an NTSC neutral iPad screen?
So if you're going to play, I mean, these are obviously different images. I think that the OLED screen here is calibrated to be a little oversaturated. The off-axis viewing angles are fine though.
Okay.
And it actually is readable in daylight.
Like at the extreme off-axis, like where I am in relation to the tablet right now, there's a little bit of color dithering stuff. But when you have it at that angle, it's fine. It's just when you're really, really like right there that you can kind of see a little bit of a problem. It's not a situation you're ever going to be using it in, so it's not an issue.
So the design, though, it is a very thin bezel tablet, at least on 3 sides.
This is 7 inches?
8 inches.
8 inches.
And around the edge here, this is like a 5mm bezel on each side. It's 6 millimeters thick.
And it's flat on the back? There's no weird beveled edge on the back?
Okay. Flat on the back, it's shiny here. We'll talk about the back in just a second.
Can you put it on its side, iPhone 4 style?
You can. You can put it on this side. No problem.
Sassy.
I think. I don't think of our Surface. There it goes. And if you try really, really hard, you can also put it on its
center
bottom
of gravity
edge.
is too high there.
Yeah, it's really high center of gravity.
Where's the speaker on this thing? Is it on the bottom edge?
It's on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, so it's on the front. It's not on the front. It doesn't come out the bottom like an iPad. That's nice.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see that right now, but there's a speaker grill. That's actually a complaint to people because the lower lip, the chin of this, is where most of the bezel is. It's also where you hold it. And so if you hold it like this, you're covering up the speakers.
I'm thinking about when I'm watching a movie and I'm going to be holding it essentially like this, and then I'm not going to be covering up the speakers, which is when I'm going to want the speakers on.
Ergonomically, when you look at something like this, the Nvidia Shield tablet, which is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of Android tablets, it has everything, including a stylus. When you look at that, it's really great for movie watching because there's a bezel on the top and bottom, and you have speakers, stereo speakers on both sides.
There's a lot of bezel on around that screen.
There is actually, you can see a lot.
Like you look at it and you think, oh, everywhere that there's black glass should be screen, and then there's a half-inch bezel around all four sides.
When you compare to something like this, I mean, that's a gradient on top.
This looks almost like a Star Trek pad, right? It looks like a thing that is just a screen. I mean, it's obviously not super thin like that, but this looks really cool. I think this is a really nice design.
It is, and from a usability standpoint, it makes reading fantastic. If I open a web browser, for example, it really feels like text disappears into the background. Because when I'm reading, you know, when you're browsing in a web browser, for example, I will click this link. In Chrome, if you scroll up, and we're going to talk about performance in a second, if you're wondering about
Was it a little slow, or did you pick a bad web page?
It could also be our Wi-Fi right now. But the Chrome, the tabs disappear, and really you're just getting a wall of text.
That's nice.
Which it is nice, actually. You know, maybe a better example is Amazon Kindle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me pop that up.
Oh,
Open
I'm
this
reading
book,
that too.
and there it goes.
That's actually a little bit too much text. I would want to add some margins to that. To
Yeah,
I mean, readable.
Kindle lets you configure that. But the idea is that it really feels like there's nothing around you and the content.
Yeah.
And it's purely a psychological thing. Like there's no problem with reading text on an iPad or another Android tablet or even your phone, but the slight sense of immersion is increased, I think, because of the lack of bezel.
Well, this is clearly a device that is a window into the thing that you're looking at. Like,
yes.
It seems like they're getting the device out of the way and letting the content be the star, which is as it should be. How is it for watching video with the lack of bezel? I would think that it might be hard to find a place to put your hands.
So it really is a hold by the edge.
Okay.
And not grip. It is kind of like a brace from the side here.
It seems like you could make a little stand that would hold it up nicely if you want to put it on an airplane tray or something like that.
And it's not wide enough that I can't grip it with one hand like this. It's also very light.
Compared to the iPad?
It's about the same weight as the iPad, a little lighter on the iPad, but the iPad's also wider because it's a different
This is the iPad Mini 2.
Yes.
Retina 2.
Yes, iPad Mini 2. You can tell that if I compare just widths of it, the entire Dell Venue fits almost within the screen of the iPad.
It's a little taller.
It's definitely taller.
Yeah. It's 16 by 9?
16 by 10.
Okay.
Number 2560 by
1600. Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't look like a 16 by 10 display from here, though.
Think about it. If you think about your computer monitor,
I'm looking at it right there. It looks.
Your computer monitor. Yeah, no, it's 16 by 10.
Okay.
Let me see. And this is Android 4.4 KitKat.
Is this an ARM machine or?
It's not. So the two big interesting things about this tablet: one, the screen design, which I think are kind of a unified thing, and two, what hardware it's running on. And this is actually an Intel-based tablet. So one of the first I've used.
This is an x86 Android implementation.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of those made by companies the size of Dell, for sure.
No, I mean, Lenovo has a bunch, the IdeaPads, but not high-end ones for the US market. A lot of overseas. Android phones and Android tablets use x86. Intel has had their Atom, their Bay Trail, now Cherry Trail. This uses the Moore's Field Intel CPU, which is a quad-core CPU. It's the quad-core version of their Mary's Field, I believe.
Not clearing things up at all.
Code names, 2.33 gigahertz, quad-core, 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's basically the most important thing you can know. Difference between the Moore's Field and the Cherry Trail systems is that this uses PowerVR graphics as opposed to Intel HD. Okay, so which is a good
more power efficient.
A little more power efficient. I think the graphics run really well. I'm actually going to load up, for example, I'll load up Temple Run, which I have installed here. In Android games, you know, sometimes when you run a game on an iPad, and some Android games, they scale up, they render at a low resolution and then scale up. A game like Temple Run actually renders at 2560.
It's rendering native?
It's rendering native.
That's bananas.
Like, I don't know if you can see this.
Wow, that looks really good.
But I don't think there's anti-aliasing on. But I can tell, and I'm going to show you really quick, Will. Let's get Will's reaction to this.
I'm going to play a little. Wow.
That is native.
It looks like it's running 60 frames a second, too. Here, I'm going to let it put it back so people can see. That looks really good. So, I mean, that's surprising.
You know, Temple Run isn't a very graphics-intensive game, but it's to reassure you that the PowerVR chip here, it's basically the same PowerVR chip that was in the last gen iPhones.
You're gonna be able to play your Clash of Clans and all that.
You
stuff
can
here.
do all of your games. Now,
what's
in terms
the app
of
compatibility like? Because it's ARM, and normal Android apps are made for ARM, right?
yes, so I'll give you the breakdown for this. Most apps run. It was difficult because there was no list. Difficult for me to find an app that could not run on here.
But
now there's a difference between running and running well.
So, but also the Play Store typically doesn't show you apps that your machine can't run.
Right. Well, it does in a sense that you can go on the web browser and say try to install your device, and it won't be on the list of devices. Microsoft Office, which was recently released for Android, that is, for example, a suite of applications outside Outlook that will not run on x86.
So Outlook will work, but the rest won't.
Yeah, and they've acknowledged that. They say it's coming in the future. The reason
is that just a compile option when people are building their apps, or do they have to do other stuff?
So there's a couple reasons for that. Most Android apps run in the past up to Android 4.2. They run with a virtual machine. Every app runs. Can be written any way for compatibility, and then runs Dalvik VM.
Right.
And the way it has run in the past is that it runs the translation between what was coded in and compiled in and Android on that stack in real time. So Dalvik runs when you launch.
Every time you launch the app.
Every time you launch the app, that's when the translation happens. With Android 4.4 and Android 5.0 now, which is not available on the Dell Venue, Android is transitioning over to a different engine. It's called, I believe, ART, which is Android Runtime.
AOT. ART.
ART.
Right, sorry.
And the difference between ART and Dalvik is that as opposed to making the translation when you run the app every time, it happens when you install it. It happens ahead of time.
Oh, so then it just basically caches that compiled version, that optimized version.
And when that happens, we're going to get performance improvements. There have been a bunch of articles and people who've done benchmarks on x86 on Android, not in the favor of x86, saying that because they're not written for x86, some games will run slow, the battery.
But yeah, I was gonna say, what's the battery?
Life.
Usually emulation or impacts battery life.
Right, and game engines like Unity have x86 compatibility now, but not everything does.
Not everybody's chosen to bake that into their apps.
And there have been some performance problems. For example, I'll launch Facebook, and is it loading now? It's going to crash on me.
How often does that happen?
Every single time.
You can't use Facebook?
I think I have to reinstall it.
That's probably not a bad thing, not being able to use Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing you a favor.
I canceled it. Nope, crashing the desktop.
Yeah, that sucks.
In terms of benchmarks, x86 is fast. It's not as fast as the Tegra K1 in the Shield, both in the graphics and on the CPU side. And I don't believe it's as fast as what's on the Note 4 as well, Samsung's AOC.
Stuff that needs DRM like Netflix and HBO Go and all that, does that work? Or
Everything works.
Okay.
And surprisingly, the H.264 decode is actually really efficient on this. I streamed it for a battery rundown. I streamed Netflix on medium brightness. Nothing changed on Wi-Fi, of course. And I got over 10 hours, actually. You can watch
we have a time lapse.
A quick time lapse as we discuss more performance. This is just Star Trek Next Generation, which I believe is the best for Netflix. You can see that clock in the back. This is over 10 hours of streaming. I've been able to use this in web browsing for a week solid. No
Without
problem.
charging?
Without charging.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And just web browsing.
Hold on, you don't mean 24 hours a day, 7 days a week web browsing. You mean all the web browsing you do on a tablet.
All the web browsing, not that I do on computing, because I use a desktop and laptop, but that I do the reading I do before bed.
So that's what, a couple hours a day maybe?
Yeah, like 2 hours, an hour and a half a day.
How long did this last, 10 or 12 hours?
This was 10 and a half hours, and there was one point where it stopped streaming for like 30 minutes. So easily over 10 hours. No problem.
Huh, that's pretty good.
I thought battery life was really surprising.
I look at anything over 10 or 12 hours on a tablet is kind of what you want.
No, because it runs Intel's SoC, it also has a new feature unique to Intel, the Realsense cameras. If you've seen those terrible commercials that Intel has run with the Big Bang Theory guy.
These are the ones where it can look at your eyes and make stuff jump out at you and all that.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff, which is actually not in this.
Oh, that's nice.
But what it does have is the Sense camera. And did you notice I actually had to flip it upside down ergonomically? In the back, there are actually 3 cameras. There's an 8-megapixel camera up there and 2 720p cameras.
Okay.
Even though it's clear that this is the base because of where the speaker is, because of how the logo is oriented, to take a photo, you actually have to flip it upside down.
Well, and it looks like the front-facing camera is on that end too, right?
Yes, front-facing camera on the top here. So I'm flipping it upside down, and you notice that there's a small window here. I'm going to pop that a little bigger. And what it does have is then the fake Lightroom thing. So what I want to do is do a test. There goes a coffee mug. Perfect. Why don't you hold that coffee mug just right out in front of me.
Let me line it up with my mouth. Give me
there
the
it
shot.
goes. And I think I'm going to take a picture right there. I'm going to take it one more time. There it goes.
Okay.
Oh, something might be blocking the camera. As it loads, what you're theoretically able to do is
do depth.
Do depth. Change the depth from the front to the back.
Can I put a white line in the middle and make it an animated GIF that has 3D?
You cannot. Cannot.
That's all I want.
It's still thinking right now. It's still processing. In practice, it's
Did it just crash?
Not good. I actually closed it. I wanted to load up the Dell app that does it.
Okay.
There's other things that the Sense camera is supposed to be able to do.
Are the cameras okay? Like, are they good cameras to use to take photos? Okay.
They're not good cameras at all.
So we have bad cameras with a bad gimmick. That tells me that, like, how do they work for video conferencing? Are they okay for that?
Yeah, Skype is fine.
Okay.
It's Max still doing its computation. But take my word for it, this is not the magical Lightroom effect where you can actually change the blurriness. It is post-processing. It's what it does is try to identify, it masks an area, but the seams, like for example, where it will try to blend your beard in this cup, it will be
a horrible nightmare.
It will be jaggy.
Okay.
There'll be compression there.
It's not what you want.
Some other abilities that this will later be able to do is give you distance and, like, for example, if you take a picture of a person, it will be able to analyze how far away that person is and how tall they are for measurements. That feature actually is not available yet. It will be in a future update.
I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to be unimpressed by that feature when it comes out in a future update.
I will probably also be unimpressed by that feature. And other than that, it runs Dell's their skin. I put Google Launcher on this Google Now Launcher because I like Google Now Launcher. There are some custom apps on here, something for the audio. You saw the camera app was unique. The gallery app was Dell's app, and not too much of the customization. I mean, there's Dropbox built in.
This is running 4.4 now.
4.4.4. 5.0 is coming.
Okay.
I'm still waiting. It's been over a month, and it's not tied to a carrier, so it really is on Dell right now.
Does this have a cell radio in it?
It does not.
Can you get it with a cell radio?
Not currently.
Okay.
So it's $400 right now, 16 gigs of storage, which I think is low.
I saw a slot on the outside, though.
It does have micro SD, so I'll show you that right here. You can pop in micro SD for storage. With current Android, you can do as much as you want on it. You can install apps, you can move
It just
files.
shows up as part of the system partition, right?
I think it's expensive.
Okay.
$400 is a lot for a 16 gigabyte
16
tablet.
gigs, yeah. Especially a 16 gig Android. Like, looking at what they're competing against, which is 7-inch Android Kindle Fires and the Nexus 7 and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of a lot. What was the Shield was $300, right?
Shield was $350, I believe, and it might have gone down in price. There might be a new one coming soon. Who knows? There was a new Tegra. This is kind of the anti-Shield, whereas the Shield was like this Swiss Army knife of tablets. Has super fast graphics, has the stylus. The stylus. You can do casting for gaming. You can use this for the grid stuff to stream down.
And you can stream stuff from your gaming PC into your living room.
This is kind of purely content consumption, reading, web browsing, and video watching, some light gaming, but not really a heavy-duty tablet. There are some problems with the web browser with this resolution. I'm going to show you right now. For example, on Tested, because it's a responsive design, it thinks that it's not quite at the width where it tries to scale down to the
the problem is it's not telling the site that it's pixel doubled.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So it is pixel doubling though,
It
right?
is. So if you go to those sites where you can, it tries to see what Chrome is telling the website the resolution is. Chrome is obviously not telling websites that it's 2560 by 1600. It's telling it that it's half
something
that.
It's probably 2/3 if I had to guess.
And that for some websites, like our website, unfortunately, is in that halfway spot where it's giving us this weird double column.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
We can probably fix that too.
And on some websites, you get the mobile version, and this is perfect for this size screen and this pixel dense screen. I would never want to see the mobile version, and you can actually request desktop site on Chrome for that. But you can't tell Chrome to tell
Always.
websites that it's a higher resolution than it actually is.
I mean, that seems like an relatively easy software fix too.
That, you know, it's on the website as well.
It may even be fixed in the later version of Android that's not available for it yet.
But I think it is mostly a design statement. I think that it's this tablet, I would not recommend it without reservations.
I wish that, like, it seems like if it were either priced to be competitive with other 16 gig Android tablets, or you know, had enough capacity to justify a $400 price, it would be you'd be in a different situation.
Yeah, I think the 16 gig really holds it back because it really isn't even that much usable with all the apps and stuff.
I was going to say, like on
about 8.
iOS, 16 gigs is almost unusable at this point.
Right.
Is it the same situation?
I put it at micro SD card here. It's usable, definitely.
Okay.
But I'm not putting, you know, 3 gigabyte games.
And are you doing photo editing and stuff on that? Like
I
you
would
have
not
with
do
the
photo
iPad?
editing on
Okay.
here. And Lightroom does not work on Android tablets yet. Lightroom only works on Android phones, so I haven't been able to test that on here.
Okay.
I think that web browsing, unfortunately, the iPad still is the smoothest. There's a little bit of hitching here. But it's interesting that Intel has gotten so far with x86. I think the big win here is battery life. 10 hours of streaming is fantastic on this thing.
Very cool. So that is tell me the name again. It's
Dell
terrible.
Venue 8 7000.
That is a terrible name.
It's out now.
Yeah.
But it's the state of Android.
400 bones. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.